Good evening, everyone. This is your East Coast Weather Authority meteorologist, Alexander Bielfeld. And yet again, let's start out with a tropical look. Nothing much going on besides Lizzie out here, which is just going to meander to the south and then to the north, and just continue to meander out in the central Atlantic. So relatively quiet in the tropics. An impressive way coming off Africa right now, actually. Big story though, as weather Twitter has actually blown up over this, especially over the last day or so, is this big monstrous ridge that is expected to build as we head into next week. It's going to create a lot of severe weather up in here. Interesting look, like this, honestly, for severe weather people, this is like March and April, May especially. Temperature wise, it's going to continue to just bake the eastern US and puts a break on the cold weather that we originally expected in the beginning of October to start out with, but it didn't put a break on it completely. It only paused it and moved it off. It's not a complete, there's no cold air coming, we're going to melt in the winter. We are not expecting that at all because this winter we are expecting a pretty interesting winter with some cold temperatures and probably some above average snowfall for some. But another thing though to talk about in the tropics is, again, ridge over troubled waters. Uh, this is ridge over troubled waters. This is for sea level pressure though, but just remember that this ridge is planted right over here in the eastern US. And notice how the pressures are dropping once again as we head into next week in the tropics. So anything that forms here will not be able to escape. That's the one thing we are afraid of. And we could see another curve back into the east coast, which is not going to be um, unforeseen as we're talking about a week in advance. If anything spawns up here and moves north into past the Bahamas and anything, it's most likely to curve right back into US as there is going to be no pathway for it to escape to the east. So going back to the so-called break on the cold temperatures, this is 2002's October, which is very eerily similar to what we are expecting this year and what we have already seen this year, especially in September, with the hurricane outburst. 2002 had the same thing, hurricane outburst in September, and the exact same thing we saw last month. That big ridge over the east, which has continued to persist. The same thing in 2002. So this was the first half of October in 2002. Notice the ridge right over the eastern U.S. and troughiness in the central U.S. and we've seen they've already received some snowfall, especially up in North Dakota. But look, heading into the second half of October, the pattern flips. So the pattern is destined to flip. When it flips is still in question, but going back to what reanalysis data is showing, we are really believing that this pattern is going to switch as we head into the mid to late part of October. And remember the winter of 2002-2003, we had a Christmas Day snowstorm in the East Coast that crippled places, and especially during Christmas, that's the worst time you could get it. Many places saw January blizzard, February blizzards. So there's just one thing that we are watching, and very eerily similar to 2002. So it's becoming to give us the realization that we are expecting a very cold and snowy winter with multiple snowstorms, very crippling snowstorms as well. That's it for now, guys. We'll have more tomorrow. Have a great night.